The story unfolds in the rugged, unforgiving expanse of 19th century West Texas, a time and place where survival demanded grit and dreams often withered under the relentless sun. As a cattle rancher, Ezekiel Thornfield's world is shaped by the harsh realities of the Old West, a land of sprawling plains, parched earth, and a society where law often bends to the will of the powerful. From the perspective of a rancher, the context and setting of this tale are not just a backdrop, but a living, breathing force that defines every choice, every hardship, and every fleeting moment of hope. The era is one of stark contrasts, where the promise of opportunity in the American frontier collides with the brutal truths of isolation, drought, and lawlessness. For a rancher like Ezekiel, the 19th century is a time when cattle drives and land ownership are the lifeblood of existence, yet both are constantly threatened by natural disasters and human greed. The story hints at a period when banks held iron grips on struggling ranchers, foreclosures loomed like vultures, and men like Virgil Blackwood, wealthy landowners with control over water rights, wielded power that could crush entire communities. This is a world where a man's worth is measured by his herd, his land, and his ability to defend both. But Ezekiel has lost nearly all of these. His cattle have succumbed to a merciless drought, his land faces foreclosure, and his spirit is broken by the loss of his wife and unborn child to fever 2 winters prior. The societal structure is one of fragility, where justice is often bought, and men like Blackwood can manipulate sheriffs and judges as easily as they trade livestock. The setting, a remote ranch in West Texas, is as much a character as Ezekiel himself. From a rancher's eyes, the landscape is both a home and a prison. The endless stretch of scrubland and mesquite, described as a barren Texas landscape, is a place where the sun beats down without mercy, and the soil, hard-packed and unyielding, resists every attempt to cultivate or sustain life. Ezekiel's ranch sits in a natural depression, surrounded by low hills that offer a clear view of the horizon, but also expose its vulnerabilities. As a rancher, Ezekiel knows the strategic implications of this terrain. The open visibility is a double-edged sword. It allows him to spot approaching riders, like Blackwood's men, from miles away, but it also leaves him with nowhere to hide when trouble arrives. The hills give attackers the high ground, making his ranch an easy target for those with ill intent. This isolation, once a sanctuary where Ezekiel planned to end his life in solitude, becomes a battleground when Celeste collapses at his gate, bringing with her a storm of danger. For a rancher, the ranch itself is more than just land. It's a legacy, a testament to years of toil, and a fragile hope for the future. Ezekiel's cabin, built from thick pine logs, is sturdy enough to withstand bullets, but its 2 windows and single door make it a potential trap. The half-dug grave behind the cabin, where Ezekiel intended to bury himself, is a grim symbol of his surrender to the land's cruelty. Yet, this same land becomes a stage for redemption when Celeste arrives. The ranch, once a place of despair, transforms into a sanctuary for a desperate young woman and her unborn child. The root cellar, hidden behind an old water barrel, is a detail only a rancher would appreciate, a practical feature for storing supplies in the harsh climate, now a lifeline for escape. The drought-stricken fields and ramshackle buildings, which Ezekiel once saw as worthless, take on new meaning by the story's end, as he envisions them as the foundation for raising Rose, the child he vows to protect. The societal context, from a rancher's perspective, is one of constant struggle against external forces. The drought that killed Ezekiel's cattle is not just a natural disaster, but a death knell for his livelihood, a common plight for ranchers in this era. The bank's threat of foreclosure is a reminder of the precarious balance between independence and ruin, where a single bad season could strip a man of everything. Men like Virgil Blackwood, who control water rights across 3 counties, represent a predatory force that ranchers both fear and resent. Blackwood's ability to buy loyalty, judges, sheriffs, and even desperate fathers like Celeste's creates a world where justice is a luxury few can afford. For Ezekiel, who has lived by the code of hard work and self-reliance, this corruption is a bitter pill, deepening his sense of futility until Celeste's arrival forces him to confront it head-on. The setting also amplifies the story's emotional weight. The merciless Texas sun mirrors Ezekiel's internal torment, baking the earth as grief and loss have hardened his heart. The vast, empty landscape reflects his loneliness. No family, no friends, just another forgotten soul in a land that chewed up dreamers and spat out bones. Yet this same desolate place becomes a crucible for transformation. The dust kicked up by Ezekiel's boots as he rushes to Celeste, the smoke rising from his burning cabin, and the crimson sunset at the story's close paint a vivid picture of a land that is both cruel and beautiful. For a rancher, the land is a paradox. It takes everything but also offers the chance to rebuild, to plant new roots, and to find purpose in its unforgiving embrace. In this context, Ezekiel's ranch is not just a physical space but a microcosm of the Old West itself, a place where survival demands resilience, where isolation breeds both despair and defiance, and where the arrival of a stranger can change everything. The harsh terrain, the fragile social order, and the constant threat of violence shape Ezekiel's worldview as a rancher, making Celeste's appearance at his gate not just a disruption, but a call to reclaim his humanity. By the story's end, the same land that Ezekiel once cursed becomes a place of hope, where he will raise Rose, honoring Celeste's sacrifice and building a life worth living. As a cattle rancher in the unforgiving expanse of 19th century West Texas, the world is a place of hard truths, where survival demands resilience and hope is a scarce commodity. The story of Ezekiel Thornfield, Celeste, and baby Rose, set against the backdrop of my own isolated ranch, is not just a tale of survival, but a testament to the transformative power of human connection. From a rancher's perspective, these characters, each shaped by the harsh realities of the frontier, represent the struggle, sacrifice, and redemption that define life in this brutal land. Ezekiel, a broken man who mirrors my own battles with loss and despair. Celeste, a young woman whose courage defies her circumstances. And Rose, a newborn who embodies hope in the face of darkness, together weave a narrative that resonates deeply with the heart of a rancher. As a rancher, I see Ezekiel Thornfield as a man carved from the same weathered oak as many of us who work this land. At 37, Ezekiel is not old by years, but the weight of his losses has aged him beyond measure. His story begins in a place all too familiar to me, a ranch on the brink of collapse, cattle dead from drought, and a bank circling like a vulture, ready to claim what little remains. The land, which a rancher pours his soul into, has betrayed him. His herd, the lifeblood of any cattleman, is gone, and with it, his sense of purpose. But it's the personal losses that cut deepest. His wife and unborn child, taken by fever 2 winters ago, have left him a hollow shell. I know that kind of grief. It's the kind that makes the endless Texas plains feel like a prison, where every sunrise is a reminder of what's been lost. Ezekiel's decision to dig his own grave behind his cabin is a stark symbol of his surrender. As a rancher, I understand the significance of that act. Digging is a labor we know well, whether it's post holes for fences or irrigation ditches to coax life from barren soil. But Ezekiel's shovel strikes the earth for a different purpose. 6 feet long, 3 feet wide, it's a measure of finality, a rancher's last act in a world that has taken everything. His plan is methodical: finish the hole by noon, write a letter bequeathing his ranch to the bank, and use his father's revolver to end 37 years of misery. It's a plan born of isolation, the kind that festers in the silence of a lonely ranch, where the only company is the wind and the ghosts of better days. Yet Ezekiel's transformation begins when a sound pierces that silence, a woman's voice, weak and desperate, calling from his gate. As a rancher, I can imagine the jolt of that moment, the way it disrupts the rhythm of a life resigned to its end. When Ezekiel drops his shovel and grabs his rifle, suspecting land grabbers, it's the instinct of a man who's learned to trust no one in a land where desperation breeds betrayal. But what he finds is Celeste, a pregnant girl on the verge of collapse, and in that instant, his world shifts. Her presence is a challenge to his despair, a call to action that a rancher recognizes as both burden and salvation. Ezekiel's journey is one of rediscovery. As a rancher, I see his actions, carrying Celeste to his cabin, fetching water, cleaning her wounds, as the practical, no-nonsense response of a man used to solving problems with his hands. He's delivered foals and calves, but a human birth is uncharted territory, and yet he steps into it with the same resolve that drives us to mend a broken fence or nurse a sick animal. When he learns of Celeste's plight, her escape from Virgil Blackwood, the rope burns on her wrists, the bruises on her arms, his protective instincts awaken. For a rancher, protecting what's yours is second nature, whether it's livestock or land, but Ezekiel extends that instinct to Celeste and her unborn child, strangers who become his responsibility. His confrontation with Blackwood and his men is where Ezekiel's transformation crystallizes. As a rancher, I know the odds he faces: 6 armed men, a burning cabin, and a newborn to protect. His military training, hinted at in the story, gives him an edge, but it's his newfound purpose that fuels his courage. When he steps out from behind the door, rifle trained on Blackwood, holding baby Rose as a shield and a symbol, he's no longer the man who dug his own grave. He's a rancher defending his herd. Only this time his herd is a single fragile life. His promise to Celeste, "Your baby will be free," is a vow as binding as any brand on cattle. And his decision to adopt Rose and build a new life on his drought-stricken land reflects the stubborn resilience of a rancher who refuses to let the land, or life, defeat him. Celeste, the young woman who collapses at Ezekiel's gate, is a figure who commands both pity and awe from a rancher's perspective. At 19 or 20, she's barely more than a girl, yet her story is one of unimaginable hardship and defiance. Sold by her father to settle gambling debts, locked in Blackwood's house for 3 months and subjected to his cruelty, Celeste carries the weight of betrayal and abuse. As a rancher, I see her as a creature of the frontier, wounded, hunted, but refusing to break. Her pregnancy, 8 months along, adds a layer of urgency to her plight, and her condition, torn dress, matted hair, blood-streaked hem, paints a picture of a desperate flight across the same unforgiving landscape I know too well. Her arrival at Ezekiel's ranch, the farthest outpost from Blackwood's territory, is no accident. A rancher understands the instinct to seek sanctuary in the most remote corner of the world, where the land itself might shield you from pursuers. Celeste's journey, stealing a horse, riding until it died, then walking the rest of the way, speaks to a determination that rivals any cattle drive. The rope burns on her wrists, and the bruises shaped like finger marks tell a story of captivity and violence, but her whispered plea, "Please don't let my baby die," reveals her true strength. For a rancher, who knows the fierce protectiveness of a mother cow guarding her calf, Celeste's maternal instinct is a force of nature driving her to defy death itself for her child. Celeste's role in the story is brief but profound. Her contractions, the blood soaking Ezekiel's mattress, and her fading strength as she gives birth are a rancher's worst nightmare. A life hanging in the balance with no doctor or midwife for miles. Yet even as her body fails, her spirit fights on. Her naming of her daughter Rose in her final moments is a rancher's kind of legacy, a single word that plants a seed of hope in a barren world. Celeste's sacrifice, giving her life to bring Rose into the world, mirrors the sacrifices ranchers make for their herds, their land, their families. She's a reminder that even in the face of cruelty, the human spirit can endure, just as a ranch endures through drought and hardship. Baby Rose, born amidst gunfire and flames, is the heart of this story from a rancher's perspective. As a newborn, she has no voice, no agency, yet her presence transforms everyone around her. For a rancher, Rose is like a calf born in the midst of a storm, fragile, vulnerable, but a promise of new life. Her cries, described as thin and reedy, cut through the chaos of the burning cabin, a sound as vital as the bellow of a newborn calf calling to its mother. Those blue eyes, inherited from Celeste, are a rancher's kind of marker, a brand that ties her to her mother's courage and Ezekiel's redemption. Rose's birth is a miracle in the truest sense, a moment when life asserts itself against all odds. As a rancher, I know the awe of witnessing new life, whether it's a foal taking its first steps or a calf finding its mother's milk. But Rose's arrival is fraught with danger, her mother unconscious, her protector trapped, and her would-be captor closing in. Ezekiel's act of cleaning her face and wrapping her in his shirt is a rancher's practicality at work, a makeshift solution born of necessity. Yet it's also an act of tenderness, a promise to nurture this life as fiercely as I'd guard my herd from predators. Rose's role as a symbol of hope is what resonates most. For a rancher, the birth of new life is a reminder that the land, however harsh, always offers a chance to begin again. Her name, chosen by Celeste in her final breath, evokes the image of a flower blooming in the desert, a rare, beautiful thing in a place of hardship. When Ezekiel vows to raise her to give her a life free from Blackwood's shadow, it's a commitment as weighty as a rancher's oath to rebuild after a drought. Rose is the reason Ezekiel's ranch, once a place of despair, becomes a home again. She's the future, a living legacy of Celeste's sacrifice and Ezekiel's transformation. From a rancher's perspective, Ezekiel, Celeste, and Rose are more than characters. They're archetypes of the frontier. Ezekiel is the rancher who's lost everything but finds purpose in protecting what's not his. Celeste is the fugitive, her courage forged in the crucible of suffering, her love for her child stronger than any chain. Rose is the hope that keeps us going, the reason we rise each morning to face the sun-scorched plains. Together, they embody the cycle of loss and renewal that defines life on the frontier. As a rancher, I see their story as a reminder that the land, for all its cruelty, is also a place where broken men can find redemption, where desperate women can find sanctuary, and where a child's cry can drown out the sound of despair. Ezekiel's final decision, to finish the grave for Celeste and build a life for Rose, echoes the rancher's creed: to endure, to protect, and to plant hope in the hardest of soils. As a cattle rancher in the harsh, sun-scorched plains of 19th century West Texas, I've seen my share of men and women who shaped the frontier, some with greed, others with grit, and a few with a spark of justice that keeps this wild land from descending into chaos. The story of Ezekiel Thornfield, Celeste, and Baby Rose is not just about their struggle, but also about the supporting characters who drive the conflict and resolution. Virgil Blackwood, the ruthless landowner; Kate Sullivan, the unyielding deputy marshal; Blackwood's men, his loyal enforcers; and Celeste's father, a shadowy figure whose betrayal sets the tragedy in motion. From a rancher's perspective, these characters are as familiar as the dust on my boots, each one a reflection of the forces that make the frontier both a land of opportunity and a crucible of suffering. Virgil Blackwood is the kind of man every rancher knows and dreads, a predator cloaked in wealth and power, the kind who can choke the life out of your land without ever lifting a shovel. As a rancher, I've heard the whispers about men like him, landowners who control water rights across entire counties, turning neighbors into vassals and honest men into beggars. Blackwood, with his silver hair and cold eyes that miss nothing, is a figure of menace, the embodiment of the greed that festers in the frontier's shadows. His reputation precedes him: rumors of missing girls, unmarked graves, and a stranglehold on 3 counties' water make him a name spoken in hushed tones at cattle auctions and saloons. To a rancher, water is life, and Blackwood's control over it is a whip he wields without mercy. Blackwood's role in the story is that of the antagonist, a man who sees people as property and power as his birthright. When I think of him, I picture a vulture circling a dying herd, waiting for the moment to strike. His treatment of Celeste, buying her from her father to settle a gambling debt, locking her in his house for 3 months, and claiming her unborn child as his property, is a chilling reminder of how men like him twist the frontier's freedom into chains. As a rancher, I've seen men barter livestock or land, but Blackwood's willingness to trade human lives marks him as something less than human. His arrogance, striding into Ezekiel's burning cabin expecting to find Celeste and her baby waiting like obedient cattle, is the kind of hubris that thrives in a land where law bends to money. Blackwood's character arc is one of unchecked power meeting its inevitable reckoning. From a rancher's perspective, his confidence is both infuriating and familiar. Men like him believe they're untouchable, buying judges and sheriffs the way I'd buy feed for my herd. His reaction to Celeste's death, snarling that she'd rather die than live as my wife, reveals a man who values control over compassion. Yet, there's a flicker of complexity in his final moments. As a rancher, I've seen cornered animals bare their teeth, and Blackwood's last stand, drawing his pistol against Kate Sullivan, shows the desperation of a predator who knows the hunt is over. When his eyes linger on Rose as he dies, the regret Ezekiel glimpses might be the closest thing to humanity in him, but it's too late. Blackwood's fall, shot down by Kate in the dust of Ezekiel's yard, is a rancher's kind of justice, a reminder that even the mightiest bull can be brought low. Kate Sullivan, the deputy marshal, is the kind of figure that gives a rancher hope in a world where men like Blackwood hold sway. As a rancher, I've dealt with lawmen who turn a blind eye for a handful of coins, but Kate is different, a woman who can't be bought, who rides the frontier with a badge and a backbone of steel. Her arrival at Ezekiel's ranch, cigarette in hand, and Blackwood's men unconscious at her feet, is like rain after a long drought. She's been tracking Blackwood for 3 months, following a trail of missing women and forged documents across 2 territories, and her presence is a reminder that justice, though rare, still exists in this wild land. From a rancher's perspective, Kate is a force of nature, like a stampede you can't outrun. Her casual confidence, "Afternoon, Ezekiel. Heard there might be some trouble out your way," belies the skill and determination that make her a legend. As a rancher, I respect her ability to take down 3 of Blackwood's men single-handedly, tying up a 4th with his own rope. It's the kind of practical, no-nonsense approach I'd use to corral a stray calf or mend a broken gate. Her badge isn't just a symbol of authority, it's a promise that someone, somewhere, is still fighting for what's right. When she confronts Blackwood, dismissing his forged papers and calling out his crimes, kidnapping, false imprisonment, murder, she's the voice of every rancher who's been crushed by men like him. Kate's arc is one of quiet triumph. She doesn't seek glory, but her respect for Ezekiel, a man willing to die for a child not his own, shows her depth. As a rancher, I see her as a partner in the fight, someone who understands the stakes of protecting the vulnerable in a land that chews up the weak. Her question to Ezekiel, "So what now? This little one needs a home," is practical, like a rancher assessing the next step after a storm. She's not just a lawman, she's a catalyst, ensuring that Celeste's sacrifice and Ezekiel's redemption aren't in vain. Kate Sullivan is the frontier's answer to despair, a reminder that even in a lawless land, there are those who'll ride 2 days to right a wrong. Blackwood's men, the 6 riders who descend on Ezekiel's ranch, are the muscle behind his menace, the kind of hired guns every rancher fears. As a rancher, I know their type. Men who trade loyalty for coin, riding in formation like soldiers, but lacking the honor of true warriors. The story describes them as having military training, which makes them dangerous, like a pack of wolves disciplined enough to hunt as one. Their arrival, cresting the hill with Blackwood at their head, is a rancher's nightmare, a force you can't outrun or outfight alone. Their torches, setting Ezekiel's cabin ablaze, are a tactic as old as the frontier, a way to flush out prey or destroy what you can't take. These men have no names, no voices in the story, which is fitting. To a rancher, they're not individuals but a collective threat, like rustlers who'll steal your herd under cover of night. Their role is to amplify Blackwood's power, to make his will undeniable. When one falls to Ezekiel's rifle, it's a small victory, but their numbers and coordination keep the pressure relentless. As a rancher, I'd see their defeat at Kate's hands, 3 unconscious, 1 tied up, as a testament to her skill and a reminder that even the strongest pack can be scattered by someone who knows the land and the fight. Their anonymity underscores their purpose. They exist to serve Blackwood's cruelty, and their downfall is a necessary step in his destruction. Celeste's father, though never appearing in the flesh, is a pivotal figure whose actions ripple through the story. As a rancher, I can imagine him, a man broken by the frontier's temptations, likely a gambler who saw his daughter as a bargaining chip to settle debts with Blackwood. His betrayal, selling Celeste to a monster, is the kind of cowardice that makes a rancher's blood boil. We live by a code of protecting our own, whether it's family or livestock, and his failure to do so sets the entire tragedy in motion. He's a shadow in the story, mentioned only through Celeste's words, but his absence is as damning as Blackwood's presence. To a rancher, he's the cautionary tale of what happens when you let desperation override duty. A man who lost his herd and his honor in one fell swoop. His role is small but significant, the spark that ignites Celeste's suffering and, indirectly, Ezekiel's redemption. As a rancher, I'd see him as a reminder of the frontier's moral quicksand, where one bad choice can destroy lives. His absence from the story's action mirrors the way he abandoned Celeste, leaving her to fight alone. Yet, through Kate's mention of witnesses who'll testify against Blackwood, including those who knew of the father's coerced deal, there's a hint that his betrayal might face consequences, even if we never see it. From a rancher's perspective, these supporting characters are the forces that shape the frontier's brutal landscape. Virgil Blackwood is the predator we fear, the one who can choke our water and steal our future. Kate Sullivan is the ally we pray for, the law that stands firm when all else bends. Blackwood's men are the hired hands who'll burn our barns for $1, and Celeste's father is the warning of what we become if we let the land break us. Together, they frame the story of Ezekiel, Celeste, and Rose, turning a rancher's isolated struggle into a battle for justice and hope. Blackwood's fall, Kate's triumph, and the shadows of betrayal remind me that the frontier is a place where every choice, whether to fight, to stand, or to betray, carves a mark as lasting as a brand on cattle. As a rancher, I see their roles as a mirror to my own fight, to hold fast against the vultures, to find allies in the storm, and to never let the land's hardships strip away my humanity. As a cattle rancher in the brutal expanse of 19th century West Texas, I've learned to read the land like a book, its droughts, its storms, its unyielding demands. But the story of Ezekiel Thornfield, Celeste, and baby Rose reads like the heart of the frontier itself, pulsing with emotions that mirror the highs and lows of ranch life. From despair to hope, fear to fury, and love to sacrifice, these feelings are as raw as the wind that scours my fields. As a rancher, I see these emotions not just as personal struggles, but as the rhythm of survival in a land that tests your soul every day. Despair and loss. The story opens with Ezekiel Thornfield digging his own grave, a scene that cuts deep for any rancher. I know the weight of loss, cattle dead from drought, a bank threatening to take your land, the silence of a home once filled with laughter. Ezekiel's despair is palpable, born from the death of his wife and unborn child 2 winters ago, compounded by the drought that killed his herd and the bank's looming foreclosure. As a rancher, I've felt that kind of hopelessness, when the land you've poured your life into turns against you. Ezekiel's plan to end it all, shovel in hand, revolver waiting, is the act of a man who sees no harvest, no future. The barren Texas landscape, described as merciless, mirrors his inner desolation, a place where dreamers are chewed up and spat out as bones. Celeste, too, carries despair, her body broken from abuse and flight, yet her despair is tempered by a mother's resolve, a contrast to Ezekiel's surrender. Hope and redemption. For a rancher, hope is as rare as rain, but when it comes, it changes everything. Celeste's collapse at Ezekiel's gate is that rain, a spark that rekindles his will to live. Her plea, "Please don't let my baby die," is a call to action, pulling him from the edge of his self-dug grave. As a rancher, I know the instinct to protect life, whether it's a struggling calf or, in Ezekiel's case, a newborn. Rose's birth, amidst gunfire and flames, is a miracle that transforms despair into purpose. Her cries, thin and reedy, are like the first green shoots after a long drought, a sign that life persists. Ezekiel's promise to Celeste, to ensure Rose's freedom, is his redemption, a vow as binding as a rancher's oath to rebuild after a fire. By the story's end, his decision to raise Rose on his drought-stricken land turns despair into a vision of a new herd, a new legacy. Fear and tension. The frontier is a place of constant vigilance, and fear runs like a current through this story. As a rancher, I feel it in Celeste's whispered warning, "They're coming," and in Ezekiel's realization that his isolated ranch, perfect for ending his life in privacy, is a trap for a hunted woman. The sound of hoofbeats, 6 riders cresting the hill, is a rancher's worst fear, an attack you can't outrun. The burning cabin, flames licking at the walls, amplifies the tension, a reminder of how quickly a rancher's world can go up in smoke. Celeste's terror, etched in her blue eyes as she grips Ezekiel's wrist, is the fear of a cornered animal, one I've seen in cattle facing a predator. Ezekiel's own fear, balancing the need to protect Rose with the threat of Blackwood's men, mirrors the dread of watching a storm approach your herd with no shelter in sight. Anger and justice. Anger is a fire that burns hot in the frontier, and this story stokes it well. As a rancher, I feel Ezekiel's rage when he sees the rope burns and bruises on Celeste, marks of Blackwood's cruelty. It's the same fury I'd feel if rustlers touched my herd. Celeste's anger too fuels her escape, her voice gaining strength as she recounts Blackwood's claim on her child. Kate Sullivan channels that anger into justice, her shot taking Blackwood down before he can draw. For a rancher, her action is the satisfaction of driving off a threat, of seeing a predator felled. The story's resolution, with Blackwood's death and Ezekiel's stand, is a blaze of righteous anger, burning away the corruption that men like him bring to the land. Love and sacrifice. Love in this story is the kind a rancher knows, the fierce, selfless kind that drives you to protect what's yours, no matter the cost. Celeste's love for Rose is the heart of her fight, pushing her to steal a horse, ride until it dies, and walk to Ezekiel's ranch. Her final act, naming her daughter Rose as she slips away, is a sacrifice as profound as a rancher giving up his last water to save a calf. Ezekiel's love grows from this, his promise to Celeste binding him to Rose as surely as a brand. As a rancher, I see his choice to adopt Rose, to build a life on his ruined land, as the ultimate act of love, a commitment to nurture life in a place that's taken so much. These emotions, woven together, make the story a testament to the frontier's heart, a place where despair can yield to hope, fear to courage, and loss to love. As a cattle rancher in the unforgiving West Texas frontier, I've learned that every day is a story of survival, shaped by the land, the people, and the choices we make. The tale of Ezekiel Thornfield, Celeste, and baby Rose is rich with themes, symbols, and storytelling techniques that resonate with the life I know, where every fence post, every storm, every new calf carries meaning. From a rancher's perspective, the story's key elements, themes of redemption and justice, symbols like the grave and rose, and the vivid narrative craft, reflect the rhythm of the frontier, where hardship forges hope and every struggle leaves a mark. Themes. The story's central theme is redemption through action, a truth every rancher lives by. Ezekiel, a man ready to end his life, finds purpose in saving Celeste and Rose, much like a rancher who rebuilds after a drought. His journey from digging a grave to vowing to raise Rose mirrors the cycle of loss and renewal I see in every season. Justice triumphing over evil is another key theme, embodied in Kate Sullivan's defeat of Virgil Blackwood. As a rancher, I've faced men who'd steal my water or rustle my herd, and Kate's stand is the justice we dream of, a clean shot that rights a wrong. Resilience, too, shines through Celeste rumors of missing girls and unmarked graves on his property, underscores his monstrous nature, a predator who thrives on others' suffering. For a rancher, Blackwood is the embodiment of the forces that threaten our way of life, and his defeat is a victory for every honest man working the land. Kate Sullivan, the deputy marshal, is the story's beacon of justice, a figure every rancher wishes for when the law fails. Her arrival, with Blackwood's men already subdued, is like a storm breaking after a long drought, a moment of hope when all seems lost. As a rancher, I admire her no-nonsense approach, tying up a man with his own rope, a practical solution born of frontier grit. Her confrontation with Blackwood, dismissing his forged papers and naming his crimes, is a rancher's dream of accountability. She's not just a lawman, but a symbol of the frontier's rare justice, ensuring Celeste's sacrifice and Ezekiel's stand aren't in vain. Blackwood's men, the 6 riders, are the hired guns every rancher fears, nameless, disciplined, and loyal to coin. Their torches, setting Ezekiel's cabin ablaze, are a tactic as old as the frontier, a way to destroy what you can't steal. As a rancher, I see their defeat at Kate's hands as a reminder that even a strong pack can fall to someone who knows the land. Celeste's father, though absent, is a shadow of betrayal, his sale of his daughter to Blackwood a cowardice that sets the tragedy in motion. For a rancher, he's a warning of what happens when you let desperation override duty. These characters frame the story, turning Ezekiel's isolated struggle into a broader fight for justice. Blackwood's fall, Kate's triumph, and the echoes of betrayal are a mirror to a rancher's life, holding fast against predators, finding allies in the storm, and never letting the land strip away your humanity. Their roles, though secondary, are the scaffolding that holds the story's heart together, making it a tale not just of survival, but of standing tall in a hard land.